Welcome. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. The date is, it's really June 24th, 2015. That means that June is almost dead. So
it's doomsday.
Yes, even the collapses are about to collapse. And that's why we're with Andrew Hoffman. You know him well. Andy, tell us, what great news is there going on now? Greece, the sands have finally run out of the hourglass.
Yes, for those who have watched Wizard of Oz, which hopefully is everybody. Yes, Greece, we were just talking about this beforehand. It's very rare that I go out on a limb. I don't predict anything. I don't say, well, gold's going to go up by then or this and that. But I've been maintained all along that there's no chance of a material agreement in Greece. Sure, they can pretend. They could say, we were saying, well, we'll give you an extension for 6 months. No, extension means another bailout. But the point is, there's no way that the Germans are going to give them any more money. There's no way the Greeks are going to take any more money unless it's for free. There's no way the Syriza government is going to accept it. Frankly, I don't think there's even any time to ratify, even if they did come up with something. Because, again, the talks completely collapsed today with all sides completely at odds over the main issues that we're at from the beginning. So I truly believe that, come Tuesday the 30th, they could try to, make up some extension of some sort, but they're not going to come up with an agreement, and the world's going to have to face the reality. And, I put at the end of my article today, can Greece be contained? A quote from Marine Le Pen, who runs the National Front Party in France, and she will be the next president, and she's a very, very anti-Euro politician herself. She said, it's the Grexit today. Tomorrow it'll be the Brexit, and then it'll be the Frexit. And of course, before that, we're going to have the Spexit, because Spanish elections are only 6 months from now. And the Podemos party will win, and Juan Pablo Iglesias will be the next president, and he wants to leave the euro as well. And it's only a matter of time before the same thing happens in Italy, where Beppe Grillo, who runs the Five Star Movement, which is the biggest political party in Italy, and he wants out of the euro. It's only a matter of time before he goes too. So they can say all they want, they can pretend all they want. There's not going to be a material deal here, and at some point, all these countries are going to break apart one at a time.
Yeah, I guess there's a certain inevitability to it all, and we're going to be there soon enough. And what do you do then? Once it all breaks up, they all go back to their own currencies, I guess, right?
Yeah, and again, it's one of these things. Everyone always thinks that there's going to be some meeting where they decide this. Like overnight, there'll be a crisis, and the powers that be will meet, and on Monday morning say, yes, we now have a gold standard. We now have this. No, there's going to be a lot of turmoil and chaos. There's going to be a lot of sorting out amongst all the countries and amongst the continent itself, all the issues. I mean, you think about the geopolitical issues of countries leaving. I mean, the political hatreds, the economic breakdowns as all these trade agreements break apart, and all of a sudden you have protectionism. And, we're talking about, again, people forget it was only a month ago that in England, they voted that they want to have a referendum to get out of the Eurozone as well. They're not in the euro currency, but it's the same kind of thing, because they're going to have protectionist policies. There won't be free trade with Europe. So, we're talking about a continent that's already in historic levels of debt and historic low levels of economic activity, breaking apart economically. Whether the euro itself fully breaks apart or in time just becomes a shadow of what it once was in different parts, I don't know. But the whole process is not going to take a short amount of time. It's going to be long and painful, and particularly for people in Europe. Of course, the ramifications are going to be worldwide, especially because before the whole thing ends, Draghi will certainly do whatever it takes, which means to hyperinflate the euro as far as he can until it's completely gone.
So there's nothing good going on here, is there?
In Europe? No. How about in Japan, right? We just finished Abenomics. It started in April 2013 with their goal of doubling the money supply in 2 years. And so now it's June. So they've, not only, remember in the fall, they increased it. So it's not fully done. It's now going on, but at a more rapid rate. But we are theoretically done. The euro is, of course, 30 or 40%? The yen is 30 or 40% lower. Their trade deficit is an all-time high. Everything is going in the wrong direction. And AB they just said today that his approval rating hit an all-time low today. So we're done with Abenomics as it was initially started. Now it's even high gear, the lowest ever. So what did he do? He lowered the voting age last night by 3 years, because he's desperately hoping that someone will enabled him to keep printing the yen into oblivion.
Yeah, I saw that. He should be the most popular man in Japan now. I mean, he saved the country, and yet that's not the case.
Well, he saved the 1%. The stock market is doing great.
Yeah.
In fact, not only is it covertly manipulated by the liquidation, it's an overt policy. The Bank of Japan's policy now is to buy up every single thing they can. In fact, they're running out of ETFs. That's what they initially were buying, was ETFs, but they're running out of ETFs to buy, just like the Fed is running out of Treasury, the ECB is running out of Treasury, so now they're going to be buying individual stocks. I don't know who's going to be on the committee to decide which stocks get the most favored status. My guess is all those Zaibatsus and other corporate intertanglings are going to make it even more corrupt than ever, but that's policy. And of course, it doesn't make the economy any better. It just causes inflation, and it helps the 1% to become richer at the expense of all else.
Isn't that great?
And then here, speaking of that, you look at our horrible economic data. Like yesterday, the durable goods orders was down 2%. It's like the biggest 10-month decline since the bottom in 2008. And again, when you put out 200 pieces of economic data, some are bound to be better than expected, especially now that they're double seasonally adjusting everything. And it's all, half of them are these island of lies things, indexes, the diffusion indices, which are based on these statistically insignificant surveys, which are biased to start with. But you look at, they come out the other day, and this is with housing starts very low. They say that housing sales in the Northeast are up 90%, and housing permits in the Northeast are up 90%. And the rest of the country, it's all down in recessionary levels. 90%. And I'm going, the Northeast. Gee, New York is in the Northeast and Washington. That's where all of the free money goes. And you think about housing, purchases in April and May in New York, for instance, surging, right? And you wonder how many of those purchases in this housing recovery are due to Wall Street bankers cashing in their bonuses to buy huge mansions in the Hamptons on the taxpayer dollar. That's what the surge in buying in Northeast housing is. And of course, in Washington, all those great government jobs. So everyone else is suffering. But if you're a Wall Street banker, you get to buy a house at a record price, I might add, in the Hamptons.
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful?
With the free Fed money. That's what ZERP and QE are for. To give it to banks for free. And then they manipulate the markets higher so that they can make even more profits with that free money.
It just amazes, just the corruption and everything else. And yet you go to New York, there's certain cities you go to, and you would think nothing is wrong. Everything's fine. You go to Miami, you think everything's fine. Construction cranes all over the place. Go to Austin, Texas. It's in a boom. You go to L.A., it's in a boom.
Well, Austin, Texas, not for long. Texas, with what's going on with the oil. Yes, I know Texas. Austin is the most fashionable city in Texas. But the state of Texas, their economy is plunging. I mean, they've had maybe hundreds of thousands, at least many tens of thousands of job losses. And, the whole economy is based on oil. In fact, I was reading a few months ago that something like 40 or 50% of all the new commercial office buildings in the country over the last 2 or 3 years are in Houston. And that was before, of course, the oil price fell by 50%. So, yes, there are definitely tiered parts of the country. I think Texas is falling off that top tier, though. And as for New York, yes, they are building. They're not building. They're certainly buying out there because they can't build anything. There's no room to build. But there's more entitlement users in New York than ever before. So again, the rich are getting richer and everyone else is becoming a serf.
Yeah, a debt serf. Nothing like a debt serf, right?
Yeah. Well, we all are in some way, shape, and form being, I don't want to use the word controlled, but under the power of these people because they really, really have taken over so much. The good news is, and of course the bad news at the same time, is that everything they've done is falling apart. It mathematically must fall apart, and it already is. And so, we talk about, for instance, in the financial markets, I've written about the, quote, last to go markets. They still can control the Dow, keep it over 18,000. They control gold, keep it under 1,200. But everything else they're losing control of. They're losing control of interest rates, that's for sure, and that's probably the most important of all. They're losing control of commodities. They've long lost their currencies. And all these things contribute to the unstoppable tsunami of reality that economic Mother Nature is unleashing. So, again, I wrote a few weeks ago, God, everything I say is the title of an article. I wrote last week, the end of the new normal. The new normal is everyone is complacent because they believe, well, they can control everything. Gold will never go up. The stocks will never go down. They say there's a recovery. The Fed's going to raise rates. I'm not sure what that means, but apparently it's good for stocks and bad for gold. And, but all these things, there was a new normal in 1999 with the internet stocks. There was a new normal in 2007 with real estate. There's a new normal all the time, and it's always, the only things that are more certain in death and taxes are change. And of course, when you have unsustainable bubbles everywhere and a collapsing economy everywhere, inevitably, a handful of computers with derivatives and algorithms are going to lose to said unstoppable tsunami.
Yeah, and there's nothing that's going to stop it. And nobody appears to be in a position to stop it anyway. I mean...
And it's the most amazing thing is, because what do I do for a living? I compile articles all day long. I'm looking for what people are saying everywhere so I can incorporate it into my articles. I've never seen so few articles. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of articles about Greece today, because, Greece is on top of the news. I mean, there's just as many articles about the two guys in Vermont who escaped, or whatever Kim Kardashian is doing. But the point is, generally speaking, the media is so... It's not even the word dumbed down. I mean, they were dumbed down long ago. They're so complacent. They so don't care that no one's writing about anything anymore. I mean, you have to come to your blog, my blog, to find not just good news, any news. That's how bad it is out there right now. And of course, when that next one hits, we know it's coming, and it's probably coming soon. Maybe the Shemitah, which is only 3 months away. When it hits, no one's going to be prepared for it. They didn't learn a thing from 1999. They didn't learn a thing from 2007. And this time off, we're in far worse shape beforehand with no cushion from the central banks. I mean, we're talking about Wile E. Coyote looking down and seeing nothing there.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, and that's really what it comes down to. There is nothing there to hold it up once this thing really, really hits. I mean, look what's going on with the mining industry and collapsing commodity prices. They're just in free fall. I
mean, I can't look. I unequivocally can say there's no one who's spoken more denigratingly about the mining industry than me. No one has done it. There's plenty of people out there who are on an equal plane. I shouldn't say plenty. There's a handful out there, guys like Bix who have said stay away. But as far as actually doing the work, the financial work, looking at it, I mean, not only did I own these things and work on Wall Street for 15 years, but I worked for the miners for 6 years. I left in 2011 to join Mars Franklin. So I'm well aware of every imaginable issue these guys are going through. And when I tell you that 4 years ago, the mining industry, the junior mining industry was dead 4 years ago when I left it. Now the senior mining industry is on the verge of collapse. I mean, you look at, I've been predicting, I said Newmont and Barrick are going to start it all when they eventually get over their egos and merge, and they're going to cut production and cut capex, and everyone else is going to do it just so they could survive, if they can survive. And I'm looking at these announcements. You look at the stocks, look at the Kinross, the Harmony, the Goldfields. How about Coeur d'Alene last night? Oh, my God, look at that press release. We did a $100 million debt offering so we can increase free cash flow. No, that's not free cash flow. That's called going into debt. And they're cutting production and they're cutting capex. Everyone's going to do it to survive. There's no longer a junior mining industry. Let me repeat that. It's gone. It died years ago. There have been no discoveries in 15 years. There are not going to be any discoveries. There's not going to be any development of anything new. Certainly not at these prices. And when the prices do go up and the cartel's broken, the governments will nationalize everything. And so still nothing will get done. We're talking about peak gold. Right behind it, peak silver, now that the base metal prices are falling, and demand is at a record high. I just read that Chinese deliveries on the Shanghai Exchange through the first 6 months of the year are 85% of global production. I mean, 85% just from the Chinese, just from that one source. I mean, they get gold coming into the free trade zone, which isn't reported. That's just China. So we're talking about, as I wrote, record low sentiment here in the States. And record high demand, and of course, we have no inventories left to speak of, and peak supply we're talking about a perfect storm that's going to hit not just the world, but certainly the mining industry and gold and silver prices.
Yep, a perfect storm. It's coming, and you better be ready for it. because we've been talking about it for a long time already, but it just keeps getting closer and closer and closer. And hey, when the inevitable hits, the question is, are you going to be ready for it?
Well, no one's going to be ready for it, that's for sure. But we will be more ready for it. Certainly more ready for it than in 2008, because I think back to how I was in 05, 6, 7. And everyone was saying, you got to buy a house, you got it. And I was in New York, and I said, no way I will do that. There's just no way, because I know this whole thing's coming down. And, actually, I did wind up buying a house in 2007. But here in Denver, I said, I told my wife, I have to move to Denver. There's no way I'm buying those horribly overpriced homes where I don't want to live. I will come out here because I plan to stay here. And luckily, I sold a bunch of mining shares to buy the house, which is pure luck. Not that all my other mining shares didn't get destroyed on top of that. But the fact is, when I was at that time and I was so vehemently telling people real estate's going to crash, even I wasn't even close to prepared for what actually happened. And it was not, as we know, it wasn't just real estate. It was everything, from commodities to stocks to real estate to economies to governments. And, so no one is truly prepared, because what I think is coming now is going to be vastly worse than 2008. I don't think there's any cushion anywhere. I don't think there's any trust or belief that central banks have the ability to do anything except make things worse. I think the economy is at its worst point in generations. People are angry to start with, and they don't have money. And when it comes, no one's going to be able to help them. And that's why when we say, are we prepared? Well, you can own gold and silver. You can buy food, guns, do all you kind of thing, but no one is going to be prepared, which is why all we can advise is that you do your best and assume the worst and hope for the best.
Yep. That's all you can do. Anyway, find Andy's work over at milesfranklin.com. Sign up for his daily missives and his audio blog. And go over to Financial Survival Network and sign up for our newsletter. Check out our site. We've got our webmaster, Stefan, literally scouring the internet, finding you the information that you need, because you're going to need it real soon. That's for sure. Andy, we will talk to you next week. Have a good one.
You too.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.